Hey, what's up, people? Piz out here, and today is Halloween. I hope all you guys out there are having an awesome Halloween, a safe and happy and horror movie filled and candy filled Halloween. I know I definitely am. And what I want to do with this video is just talk at you guys and ask you guys some questions, some questions that I'm asked. On a fairly frequent basis, particularly this time of year, as most people know that I'm a big horror movie fan, a big horror movie buff, and I get the question a lot, well, this must be your favorite time of year. You must really love Halloween. And I do. I love Halloween for obvious reasons, and I just love this time of year. I love the fall. I love the autumn. I love when, the days grow short and the shadows grow long, and there's that, that moist chill in the air, and, the changing of the trees and everything. I was actually driving the other day, and I was just kind of, just mesmerized. It was so beautiful. Where I live, driving down the highway or the interstate, I'm just flanked by by woodland, and it just looked beautiful. The reds this year were just some of the reddest reds I'd ever seen, with the trees changing colors, the leaves changing colors, etc., etc. I was just really, really taken back to the point where I was like, I got to focus here. I'm driving, but yeah, just beautiful, beautiful time of year. Halloween doesn't mean exactly the same that it used to mean to me as a kid. I guess I'm getting older. Maybe I'm turning into a curmudgeon. I don't know. But my man cave, as you guys can see, horror posters, horror figures. I've got horror stuff everywhere. I pretty much live in a perpetual state of Halloween. My man cave is Halloween 365 days a year. There's skulls everywhere. There's horror figures everywhere. There's bloody masks. There's hockey masks. There's horror posters. There's zombies. There's a bloody zombie head right over there. There's the Grim Reaper right over there. It's just, there's just bloody, gory horror stuff everywhere. So I live in a perpetual state of Halloween. So when it actually is Halloween, it doesn't quite have the same weight to it as maybe a civilian might feel during this time of year. And most people, this time of year and on Halloween is probably really the only time of the year that they sit down and watch horror movies. I watch horror movies all year long. I don't wait to Halloween to watch Halloween. As a matter of fact, usually on Halloween I watch, horror movies that I don't watch just whenever. Halloween's a movie I can watch whenever. I don't watch Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th because I watch Friday the 13th movies whenever. So on Halloween I might sit down and watch Lucio Fulci Zombie, or I might sit down and watch I don't know, Slaughter High or something like that. Just kind of a random horror movie that I don't, that I don't watch as frequently as I do a movie like Halloween or a Halloween film. But I do love Halloween. But that's a question I get asked a lot. Oh, you must love this time of year. You must love Halloween. You must live for Halloween. Well, I love it, but again, I'm living in a perpetual state of Halloween. I also get asked a lot, again, particularly a lot during this time of year, when people find out that I'm a huge horror buff. They ask, do you like to be scared? Or, why do you like horror movies? And that's the question I kind of want to ask you guys too, or the questions I want to ask you guys too on this Halloween is, why do you like horror movies, and do you like to be scared? And I'll answer the second question first. Do I like to be scared? I very seldom go into a horror film expecting to be scared. Very, very, very seldom. Most horror movies, it's my favorite genre. it's the genre that entertains me the easiest, that I derive the most entertainment value out of. Therefore, when I watch a horror movie, either in the theater or at home or wherever, I just expect to be entertained. Now, granted, if a horror film can go the extra mile and create suspense and build tension and create a creepy atmosphere and can kind of get under my skin, and the best horror movies are the horror movies where when you're laying in bed at night and you get to those really quiet, slow moments just before sleep takes you, and then you think about the horror movie, and then you think, well, what would happen if something just grabbed my ankle and just pulled me? Or what would happen if, like, the sheets covering me now were just ripped off of me, and I look at the foot of the bed and there's nobody there? That's creepy. Think about that tonight as you're tucked in all nice and warm in your bed. Just imagine a cold hand gripping your ankle and pulling you, or your sheets being ripped off of you, and you look down to the foot of the bed and there's nothing there. Imagine that. Also imagine, like, feeling the weight on the other side of the bed go down, as if something has just sat on the bed or laid on the bed with you. You roll over and there's nothing there. Think about that tonight. Just as you're about to go to sleep. Think about that tonight. If a horror movie can go that extra mile and get under my skin and creep me out, God bless you. Good for you. Those movies are few and far between. And, even a good entertaining horror movie, those are kind of few and far between themselves. But I go to a horror movie because I want to be entertained. Now, granted, and this is, I don't want to get too deep here and dive into some sort of psychoanalysis, I like horror movies because I like watching people get killed, or I like blood and gore, or whatever. That's a whole other talk. You know what I mean? That's a discussion you should have with, a clinical psychologist, or, an accredited kind of counselor who can really figure those things out. Yeah, I like horror movies because that is my genre. That is the genre that I can get the most entertainment value out of. So that's part of the reason why I love horror movies, and why I reach for a horror movie for more often than I reach for an action film or a comedy or any other genre. Now, granted, there is a morbid part of me that does like a good bloody, gory, bloodbath kind of horror film every now and again. But for the most part, I just want to be entertained and have a fun experience, and horror movies supply me with that the easiest. Now, why do people like horror movies? Why do people watch horror movies? Whenever I think about that, I always think of the quote from the late great horror director Wes Craven. Horror movies are boot camps for the psyche. I think that's a really, really brilliant thing, because what do most horror movies explore? Death and the afterlife. And what person out there isn't afraid, or what person out there doesn't fear death? And what person out there doesn't kind of fear what happens to you after death, or you wonder what happens after you die? And horror movies allow you to work out those fears and really face those fears in a very safe kind of way. You can face the fear of death, or the unknown of what comes after death, in the privacy and safety of your own home, or in the safety of a movie theater surrounded by other people who share the exact same fears. And that's kind of a, that's also kind of a cathartic thing as well, because the best horror movies are really the kinds of horror movies that explore the common fears, the fears that, we all sort of have. It's one of the things that, Jaws did so well. Nobody wants to be eaten alive by a giant shark. That's awful. That's awful. very common, and that's a very common fear. Um, but I think, watching a horror movie with those fears and facing them that way in the safety of your own home or in a movie theater um, is a very cathartic kind of experience. And it's ultimately, I think, a very healthy experience. And horror movies get blamed for everything. All the wrongs in society can be blamed on, and not just horror movies, although horror movies take the brunt of the assault. It's just movies in general, but mostly horror movies, take that, they're what's wrong with society. And I don't think that's true at all. I think sick people are going to do sick things, whether they like horror movies or romantic comedies or, whatever their genre is. A sick person is going to do a sick thing. And I actually think horror films, imagine I'm a sick person and I really, really just want to stab somebody. It's better to watch a horror film and get that out through the horror film as opposed to literally taking the knife and going out and stabbing someone. If you're able to work that sickness out through a horror film and live that through a horror film, that's much better than physically taking the knife and going out and stabbing somebody. So, think of it this way. Horror movies, although granted, they may drive one person to commit a violent act. How many violent acts are deterred by people who work out these dark fantasies through a horror movie? Think about it that way. Boot camps for the psyche. And I like I said, I really think that's a brilliant, brilliant statement by, the late, great Wes Craven. I really think horror films are cathartic experiences. They're ways to work out a common fear in a safe environment, usually surrounded by people who share the exact same fears. Like I said, the fear of death, the fear of the unknown, of what happens after death, things like that. What better for someone to work out their fear of arachnophobia by actually watching the film Arachnophobia? That's far cheaper than actually going and getting counseling or having like some, a psychologist or psychiatrist trying to help you through the arachnophobia. It's far cheaper to just watch the movie and work through it yourself, to be perfectly honest. But I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. Why do you like horror movies? And do you like to be scared? Or why do you think just people in general like horror movies? Put it that way. Really looking forward to what you guys have to say about that. Please let me know in the comments section of the video. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching again. Have a great, safe, awesome Halloween. And until next time, you guys take it easy. Peace.